o te whawheroa I alo I atu ai. Le pa ia maulunga le aso. Lau sunga le taitai o sauninga, Reverend Maauga Motu, le launga na ami, la fionga le au malu malo Samoa. La fionga tu ia Atua Tupua Tamasese efi, malo masiofu. La fio min star o kapineta, sui o malo mai fafu. Le alitu stala ia Tony Brunt, ai maise le pa ia mawalunga o se sao nei. A fio maia, matala maia ao, ai o talitonu, ona lo filungia le tātou mafutaka. O le afau au, le tātou po kalame, I ngana Peritania. Reverend Maauga Motu, Your Highness the Head of State of Samoa, a fionga tu ia Atua Tupua Tamasese efi, and Masiofo Filia, Honourable Ministers of Cabinet, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Mr. Tony Brunt, author of the book we are launching today, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Chairman and members of the Samoa Historical and Cultural Trust, I extend a warm talofa and welcome to you all. And at this time, I would like to call upon Reverend Maauga Motu, Secretary of the National Council of Churches, to lead us in a word of prayer.
Talofa le aingo le atua rene fiafi. Auri amataina la tatu tapo inga, o le lua tau sanga taruai, na o te talaina I foi, se tasi o tusi, I longa I tono le tonu, e ta ua o le Chinese in Samoa. Fio tuale fionga ia kai ia ma sota iatu mo le fa moe moe. Aru ne fi. O to fi foi. O to te talaina foi ma fai se taru sanga. E fa mnui ai le tusi. O sa o nia le fionga ia Tony Brunt. Germans in Samoa. O au e o cousins and nieces. E Saina. Pito Saina. Ai foi o cousins ma nieces. I le pito sia man. Sa ole ma fo wina e ni tangata fa pene I lo ainga. Ai ono to tele o nisi tupu mai I o mato tupu anga lo ia tunu I fafu. That is why there are so many Chinese and German connections of myself. Tato tapua I le atua. O le autu o le whaitangua tu Tupa'i o le asoro nei. Wha autuina wha penei. Wha maninoina o le nunumi. Wha maninoina o le nunumi. In English, sorting out the mess. O te tono whiaunga le lei, mo le wha moe moe o le whiawhiri nei. I think that this could be a very good aim for our coming today, this evening, to launch this book. To me, this book might be a helper to sort out the mess historically and culturally. O te tatono se tusi o le ao ngā. Au mai e le nganga pa ia o le atura na mea lofa, I le tamaya Tony Brunt. God has gifted the author spiritually to do this hard work and very big job, preparing, initiating, thinking, writing, and so many actions done to this book. Now, today, our head of state and many guests from many branches and from many parts of the world, especially in Samoa, We are coming here as a family to give this job or this book to be blessed by God. Ina ia maramalama, ma whaawhaingo fie, ma whaamaramalama, ele ngata o tūpuranga whaia o Samoa. Ia o Samoa fōri nei vaitau. I e ole a whaitau winare nei tusi. Tātou te talo i le nganga o le Atua. Ia whesoa soani fōri nei tusi. I tāla anga o si o tātou o tunu. Ai maise lava le vaenga fōi i Siamani. O e o lo mtua mita i ro lātou tau. O Siamani, part German. I have many friends from Whanailili here, from the village of Manu, who are connected to the offer. And I'm proud to meet them because they are connected to this German family. And thank God for them. O te whawhetai, o mawhai ona tātou au mairi nei ngā ruenga, se I whapa ia I rumo le Atua, ia maa matu ro tātou atunu, ia I tātou ne whiawhi, I o tātou mātua le atunu, ia e maise o wō mai māsani, o la tātou te tāno. God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the offer of this book. Thank you for his thoughts and the help from his wife and children and those who helped him out financially, socially, culturally, and every part of contributions he received. We are here as a family, Samoan and Germans, and many friends who are coming with us today to bless and make this book a gifted book to our young generations and us today. We ask for your blessings upon the orphan and wife and the family. We ask for your blessing upon this book so that it will be a valuable spiritual helper to our people. Ye whamanuia I o mātou mātua. Le whionga I leo mamalu o le malo, ma le masiofu. Whamanuia I tai o le mātou malo, I whionga I minsta, sui o le parmeni, whai o le mātou whatasi. Whamanuia I wō mai masani mai o tunu I whafo, o e olo nguti mea masio mātou malo o waratau wati na ina. Whamanuia I le tai whono, o le Historical and Cultural Trust I Samoa nei. Ia mātango fia pē mea umalatou te whaia, mō le nei atunu, ia vi I ailo suafa. Whamanuia ia Tony Brunt ma le wharetua. Ia whapeaina fo inisi o mafau whau, I ni ngā ruenga whape nei, ina ia whaia, so soni si o mātou atunu. Ia lo whangira o mātou nunu nei po, a mātou mumoe mamarolo, ufitia I mātou umailo walofa. O a mātou te tāro I atu inatu, ina ulava suafa I suke riso le ri imano mātou whaolo. Tu mau I mātou rungo manawa nui o oile atu ora tamane alo mare nganga sa, nei e whaavavau lau. Amen.
Ich heiße Joachim Keil und ich verstehe ein bisschen Deutsch und ich spreche etwas Deutsch. Aber ich hoffe, Sie hatten einen guten Aufenthalt heute Abend. Vielen Dank. Lange Brown always tells me off for not speaking enough German. Your Highness the Head of State, Reverend Maauga Motu, Cabinet Ministers, High Commissioners and members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege and a pleasure for me to stand before you this evening to welcome you for this very historic night where we are launching Tony Brunt's book, Germans in Samoa. As Reverend Maauga mentioned 2 years ago, we'll reprinted the Chinese in Samoa. Last year we reprinted the Cyclopedia of Samoa, and tonight we are launching Tony Brunt's book, Germans in Samoa. I'd like to introduce to you our Samoa Historical Trust. We, Clarence Nelson, Toa Omoe von Reike, Jeff Marfleet, myself, and Aiono Sio Sia Maliatoa. It's something that we support and love, and especially historical books concerning our country. When Tony introduced me to his book and said it's available online, I told him I have trouble reading things on the computer and on the internet. Most of the emails I send end up in Jupiter or Mars, and some of the emails I sent to me, I have yet to receive them. So I'm here to welcome you, but at this time I'd like to turn the time back to the MC this evening, Tupa'i, Klaus Stunzner, and he will introduce our next two speakers. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. Thank you.
Speaker for tonight, I think is a leader who needs no introduction, but I also believe is a leader who has a very strong understanding, appreciation, and passion for history and culture. History and culture, two aspects that are embraced in the book that is being launched tonight. So I'd now like to invite our keynote speaker, Rofionga, Leo Maluon, Malo Samoa, Rofionga tui Atua Tupua Tamasese for your keynote address.
Lo sunga te te sauninga. Ia lau sunga Keil ole male fala poptonga le Historical Cultural Trust. Ia e fa pe foi lau sunga Peter Brunt, Tony Brunt, o te fese tu ngai wala ngo luete o le te wa ia nga luenga tasi. Ia va pe foi lau sunga Tupa'i ia o la ta i o ile fionga le minista ia va pe foi le hai komisi malon fretua ia o te o New Zealand o ia vo malisi sui o malo ia o te fa pe la foi o fa ta lo fa tu ia de malu wa fanga poto ia e ono le me pe ia au de tusi le ngala petania ia le la au tau fa ia tu le ngala petania. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Reflection on Tony Brunt's To Walk Under Palm Trees, Germans in Samoa. Snapshots from albums. Let me start by thanking the organizers for the honor of saying a few opening words on the celebratory occasion. I am partial to invitations presented by those dear to me, and especially when they present them in person, so that when Keil came to Tuefu with what looked like a thick book and an invitation to speak, I smiled. I knew that unless I was double booked, I would be here today. After reading the book, I'm glad that I am. The common saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, seems particularly apt for this book. The book is just over 250 pages, and most of those pages are filled with pictures from family photo albums, many of which have been lovingly restored by Tony and his helpers using modern digital technologies. E-books like this make sense in today's publishing world, but particularly for someone, given the way in which we have taken to the internet. E-books capitalize on our modern penchant for instantaneous communication and is by far the more cost and time-effective option in terms of bookmaking and reaching a larger and wider audience more quickly. Having dabbled a bit in the world of bookmaking, I fully appreciate the work involved in getting something like this together. It is no small task. Over the next few minutes, I would like to offer some thoughts about the potential impact of this e-book on Samoan ideas of history, especially history-making, family, and legacy. My great-aunt Gustava Nelson married Clem Metzel. Her sons Albert and Robert Wessel are memorialized along with many other German Samoans in this first book. I lived with my grandfather, Taisi Olaf Frederick Nelson, into F as a child, and I remember visiting my aunt Gustava, his sister, often. She and her family lived in Tupua at that time. She also wasn't far away. She had a horse and cart, which I loved. She also loved people and entertaining. She moved with ease and aplomb, it seemed to me, between her two very different worlds, that of her Samoan Safuna side and that of her European, Swedish, German families. As a shy child, I would cringe whenever my great-aunt visited to Efu because I knew that no matter how many people were in the room, she would always make a big thing of hugging and kissing me. But I always forgave her because once she was finished, she gave me a shilling. I also remember the dinner parties my great-aunt used to have and how I used to marvel at the large brick ovens they used to cook with. Everything was done with scientific precision, from the way they cooked the German sausages, who prepared their geese for special occasions, to the way they brewed their beer. Many of the pictures in the book capture the high society culture of my great-aunt and her German family. These photographs allow her descendants more than a mere peek at how or where they lived or what they probably looked like back then, their fashions and tastes. Her children and great-children, etc., also get a lesson on the physical and cultural landscapes of Samoa, especially urban Apia at that time. These pictures are family heirlooms. They tell of family culture and family history, but they are also national heirlooms because they also tell of a time in Samoan history. When reading these pictures as national historical records today, we must be careful to remember to read them within their historical context. In reading this book, I thought of my great-aunt Gustava. It's the kind of book that she would have loved. I thought of her children and her children's children and how they would treasure this as a family heirloom because it speaks of a history and culture that belongs to them and to many others like them throughout Samoa. It is a history and culture that lives in their blood, flesh, and bones, and one that they can be proud of. Without a doubt, the German colonial period imposed significant changes on Samoan society and culture. 19th and early 20th century Samoa was besieged with foreign interests, a lot of which are captured by the photographs in this book. Western historians have lauded the German period in Samoa as the most settled period during European imperial colonial history. Much of this has been attributed to the skill and paternalism of Governor South. The Germans that came to Samoa were highly talented and well educated. The book makes this point loud and clear. German written and photographic records offer historical evidence of and what happened during their time, what they built, and of what they were interested in Samoa. The legacies of what they did, especially of what Governor South and his successor, Dr. Erich Schultz, who was also Chief Justice during his time, and of what Dr. Augustin Kramer did, lives on today. The significance of their contribution to understanding modern Samoa cannot be understated. Dr. Augustin Kramer's work on Samoan genealogies and custom is, for example, highly sought after by lands and titles court litigants today. History making is both deliberate and accidental. But making history books, such as the one we are launching today, has to be more deliberate than accidental. Once the decision is made to make a book such as this, a book that speaks directly to a country or to a people's past, deliberate thought has to go into making decisions about what to put in and how to frame it and what audience to target and so on and so forth. The e-book is, as Tony said in his preface, a romantic remembrance of the history of Germans in Samoa. And as you go through the pages, you will realize that it is deliberately so. In saying this, I do not mean to say that it has no real or authentic contribution to our remembering of Samoa's history. It is very much a part of Samoa's history. Germany Samoa is as much a part of Samoan modern history as is Britain's or New Zealand's Samoa, American Samoa, and pre-imperial colonial and post-independent Samoa. In fact, as noted in this book, the history of Germany Samoa is not only part of the history of Samoa and Germany, it is also part of the history of New Zealand, Britain, and America, and is part of the age of global imperialism. Therefore, apart from some digital sprucing up of images that were fading, the pictures of German Samoa recorded in this book are very real, many of which have not been publicly displayed before. The picture album therefore offers a record of German Samoa that is ripe for further historical and sociological analyses. By saying that this is a book of romantic remembrance, I mean to say that it is a book that is unapologetic about the romantic origins and impetus. And so it would be. It is a book that came together through the love and nostalgia of German Samoan families for their families, many of which were born and raised in Samoa, as well as a love and nostalgia for Samoa. For some, such as the Stunzner family, now living outside of Samoa, it was a nostalgia most prominently tied to what they remembered of their life, walking under the palms of their houses and plantations in Samoa. It is this love and nostalgia for family and Samoa that enabled this book to become a reality and has brought us here to bear witness to the launching of a voyage into the lives of the reading public, both here and beyond. By allowing these pictures to take center stage in the telling of the story of this book, the impact will be, as the saying goes, worth 1,000 words. It is a great legacy and will contribute to the task of representing Samoa in all her fullness and color. I commend Tony and his team on completing this first book, and I look forward, God willing, as Tony said, to the launch of the second. God bless.
Reflections on the book, and I have to agree that it's a book made up of many pictures, and for those of us, including myself, who grew up loving to read comics, and we read books by looking at the pictures, this book is a joy to read. Our next speaker is the man of the moment, Mr. Tony Brunt, and I'd like to invite Tony up for your remarks, and also to enlighten us on a journey that you took, which has led to the book launch this evening. Tony.
Lawa whionga tui atua, le au mamalu o le malo, ma le masiofo. Lau susonga, Reverend Motu, members of the Samoa Historical and Cultural Trust spread around the room, and distinguished guests. I'm not going to say ladies and gentlemen tonight, because tonight you are all our distinguished guests and we embrace you. And thank you for coming along. I was thinking as I was sitting up here that the last time I came to an official function at Vailima. It was in 1975, all the way back in 1975, and it was an Independence Day ball or dance. And little did I realise that 42 years later, my next official function here would be the launch of a book with which I am associated. The first thing I want to do is thank the Head of State for his erudite and reflective comments and accurate comments about the book. And I appreciate the time you took, Laua Whionga, in reading the book. And your kind comments about it. Now, the book and the online photo exhibition that it's based on certainly has taken a lot of time, but it would not have been possible without the extraordinary generosity of a lot of long-suffering families who I bothered to open their photo collections, their priceless family heirlooms to me. And I propose to pay tribute to these kind-hearted and courageous people shortly. But I do want to say that this is a wonderful venue, isn't it, for the launch of a history book. And I want to thank Joe Keil and the Trust for their inspired choice. I want to thank the Museum Trust for agreeing to have the launch here. And in the whole of the broad tropical Pacific, I doubt that there is a more historic house than this. It positively drips with memories and stories. And just to pluck one or two items of interest out of the book about Vailima from a German perspective, I think we can owe a tremendous debt to the wealthy German trader and philanthropist Gustav Kunst, who really, I think, allowed the house to survive. He bought it from the estate of Robert Louis Stevenson in 1901, and it was badly run down. And before he died in Hamburg in 1905, he spent a lot of money refurbishing Vailima and its grounds. And on page 206 of the book, there's an invitation card from the next great master of this house, Wilhelm Solf, the German governor, and his wife, his new wife, Joanna, in mid-1909. And they were inviting a select group of people from Apia to come up for musical evenings on the last Saturday of every month. So the sound of violins, a piano, and maybe a cello, and singing probably echoed around the grounds of Vailima until the next German governor, who was a bachelor and a much more private man, Erich Scholz. And that's when I think the social life up here came to an end in that area. So Scholz, by the way, as I've told before, fell in love with Samoa, and he was tattooed with a full pea. Can you imagine one of the following New Zealand administrators being tattooed with a full pea? It may have happened up here. The Tufunga Tātātau may have done it up here. We don't know. He was so secretive about these things. So tonight, with this gathering, we add in a very small way to the long curriculum vitae of this grand house. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming along tonight and helping make it the special occasion that it is, especially those who've travelled from overseas and have travelled long distances. We do have quite a few guests tonight from New Zealand. Thank you very much for coming, and I propose to focus in on a few of you later on. As I said, I do want to spend a bit of time tonight thanking a number of people and in the process giving a little bit of background on how the project came about. I'll be talking for about 40 minutes, so there is no early escape, I'm afraid. But before I do that, I just want to highlight something that underlies the way that I work, and certainly the way that I worked on this book. And that is because I think it's important, and that is the feeling of deep respect and a strong affection, ole alofa, that I have for the people I've been researching and for the people I present in the book. I couldn't have persisted with such a long project if it had just been a piece of cold historical investigation. But when you're working with photographs, especially personal photographs that people have shared, you're brought right into the lives of the people displayed. You're spending hours and hours sometimes digitally restoring these photographs and optimizing them for display. You're looking at the people and they're looking at you. And it's quite different from researching historical documents. There's almost a spiritual dimension to it, certainly a very human dimension. These people have passed on, but I still regard them as being present, not physically, but present nevertheless. And so I'm careful to treat their lives and their life stories with discretion, fairness, sensitivity, because the forum they're being shown on is worldwide, the internet. And they had no expectation when they were on this side of the veil that their lives would be the subject of this unique type of re-examination to a global digital audience. New revolutionary forms of communication require the personal or family historian to exercise new levels of self-restraint. There are, of course, many things I've been told by the families in my journey about the people that are portrayed that, of course, I would never include in a caption or online. And there are photos that I have scanned from family collections that are of major historical interest from some angles. But because of the nature of the content, I won't use them. There are also some photos that when I have tried to upload them to the online photo exhibition, will not upload, or my internet connection drops out persistently. So I've taken that as a message and withdrawn them and rearranged that part of the exhibition. There's lots more on this subject that I could talk about, but now is not the time. So in this way, I find I can work in a strange sort of collaboration for the satisfaction of everyone involved. And I mean those involved in a broad sense. It's been a balancing act. On one side is the other demands of history, of trying to portray the truth of the times in captions and in photographs. And on the other side is the need to be fair, the need to preserve the dignity of people, and to some extent their privacy as well. So that's how I work. And that's perhaps the reason why I've been able to form genuine friendships with the people who have opened their family collections to me. Meeting these people and listening to their always remarkable stories has been an incredibly rewarding experience and a life highlight. So that brings me to a number of thank yous I want to make to people who are here tonight. And this is in no order of importance, it's a bit random. Firstly, the Sase Hini family. This project began as a result of me writing the Brunt family history many years ago. And several years ago, I decided to call on a cousin in Auckland, who I'd never met before, Agnes Sase, who married, and her married name was Hini. And I went there mainly to look at boring old Brunt stuff. But I came away enthralled with the wonderful photography she had of her father, who worked for the DH and PG. He came here in the early 1900s, married Louisa Haliso, had a family. And so I asked Agnes if I could scan those photos, and she said she gave me a lot of great information, and she let me scan the photos, including the fantastic dancing in the forest photo, which we have framed in our home, and is probably this wide and about this high, and I regard as one of the 10 best photos to come out of Samoa in the German colonial period. So with Agnes's kind agreement, we scanned them, and that was the first step. That experience alerted me to the fact that there were probably other family albums that people hadn't seen that had photography of real historical significance, and that's how it turned out. Now, Agnes is in her 90s. She is not well enough to travel, but there are members of her family who have come up tonight, especially for this this book launch, and I will mention them in a minute. But before I do, a last word on Agnes and her mother, Louisa Haliso, because her mother is immortalised in a famous Samoan pese, Ole whana ta'avili ua ote ote mai. There's a line in the song that goes, Male awhawhine o Kalisi. Now that daughter of Kalisi, of Christian Haliso, was Agnes's mother, who was a witness to the tragic events of Black Saturday at the Haliso Sase shop opposite the courthouse. And Agnes was also a witness as a young child. So Louisa Haliso was the grandmother to a number of members of the Sasehini family who have flown up from New Zealand to be here tonight. Anne Gordon, Kevin and Mark Heaney, grandson Michael, and partners Tina and Sarah. And as my tribute to Agnes, I wonder if they could stand up and be recognised, please. Secondly, the Stunzner family, who have a chapter in the book, and it's right at the heart of the book. And it was their grandfather who, as the head of state referred, gave us the title of the book, To Walk Under Palm Trees, which he wrote in a wistful letter from Germany in the 1940s. And what he actually wrote was, I long sometimes to walk under palm trees. Now, early on in this project, people told me in Auckland, look, you've got to talk to Albie Stunzner. He's the Stunzner family historian. I hadn't met Albie, so I rang him out of the blue, and I said I wanted to come around and talk to him and have a look at his photos. He said, come around, and we met a couple of weeks later. I met him and his lovely wife, Rhonda, and Albie showed me some beautiful photos. But I was absolutely enthralled by the Stunzner family story, which, to use a bit of a cliche, it's an epic family saga of the turbulent 20th century. You know, it's got everything. And I resolved that night that we would not just make the photo exhibition a random series of photos with captions, but we would group it into chapters. And one of the chapters that I wanted to write was the chapter about the Stunzner saga. Just in brief, you will know, most of you, that Fritz Stunzner was an architect and builder who came in here in 1897. He started a building company. He built the courthouse, the building that later became known as the Casino Hotel. He built the observatory at Mulinu'u, and a number of other iconic homes and commercial buildings. Then he married Mary Beetham. They had a family. The First World War comes along. The family is stripped of all their assets, like just about all of the other Germans in Samoa. And they were sent to internment in New Zealand. And Fritz Stunzner's young children, or half of them, were allowed to live with them on Motu Island because he was ill. Then they went back to Germany. They were sent back to Germany in the 1919. In the mid-1920s, they came back. They were one of only two German families who were allowed to come back to Samoa. The other family was the Dusterdick family. The Stunzners took over the management of the Tuvalu plantation. Two of the boys went out on their own later. And then in 1939, Fritz and Mary returned to Germany, and two of the boys who were living in Samoa were put into internment for 6 years. 6 years away from their family. So that's roughly where the Stunzner chapter finishes off. But during my project, Albie became a good friend and my right-hand man on the photo archiving project. You know, he's a real Samoan. He was born and raised here. I'm just a plastic Samoan. So Albie was able to point me in the direction of other German Samoan families and who might have good photo collections. And he drew into our circle of helpers his fantastic siblings, Klaus, Horst, Oscar, and Kort, his sister Trude, and his cousin Marina. And on the ground here in Apia, doing a lot of the hard work, his niece Tertia Ryan. I was a very, very lucky man to have this superbly knowledgeable team that I could run questions past and get information from. And more of that will appear in Volume 2. Albie has flown up to be with us tonight. I don't see him in the audience, but if he is here, Albie, could you please stand up? Thank you. Thank you, Albie. Now, thirdly, the Hufnagel family. Most of the family photo collections I have had to hunt down. But one extraordinary set of albums came to me out of the blue. I got a call one day from a woman called Christine Hood, and she said, Tony, my auntie is Tuzelle, and she is the granddaughter of Captain Court Hufnagel, who was the manager of the Vailima plantation for 30 years, from 1881 to 1911. He married Catherine Beetham, and I knew that Captain Hufnagel was a major figure in the Samoan agriculture for a long, long time. Almost from the time he came in off the sea and started a management of the Vailima plantation, it became a centre of innovation in agriculture in Samoa. And it was a model plantation which was on the tourist route back in the sailing ship days. Christine said, look, Tuzelle is not sure what she wants to do with this collection. Would you like to come around and have a look at it? You know, that's like asking an alcoholic if he wants another drink. I went around and met Tuzelle and her husband Laurie, and was astonished at the quantity and quality of the photographs they had, some going back to the 1870s, and all of them beautifully preserved. Tuzelle was born and raised in Samoa at a plantation at Lotopa called Sungafo that the captain had run on the side for his own family. And as a child, she even sat on the knee of Count Felix von Luckner when he visited Samoa. Her brother, Jim, travelled on von Luckner's yacht, the Sei Teufel, as a cabin boy. Her father was Court Hufnagel Jr., or as he later became known, Court Hufnagel Beetham. He was chief surveyor in Samoa in the 1920s and 1930s. So Tuzelle and I became good friends, and needless to say, she and Laurie had to put up with me camped at their dining table for long periods with my scanner going through their albums. Now, a couple of months ago, Laurie sadly passed on after a long illness, and I sent a note of condolence to Tuzelle, and I said in that it would be great for her to come up to this opening, to this launch, as a pick-me-up. And also because this could be the last time that the Hufnagel name is ever mentioned in Samoa at a state-attended function. And I'm pleased to say that Tuzelle has been compliant. She and her daughter Kathy flew up from Auckland last night, and I'd like Kathy and Tuzelle to stand up and turn around so that people can see them, please. And the centrepiece for me of Tuzelle's collection, which I have featured in the book, was something that I regard as one of the most sensational pieces of historical memorabilia to come out of the German Samoan period. And it was Captain Hufnagel's farewell card when he retired from Vailima in 1911. There were 126 signatures, mainly by European settlers, Germans, English people, and others. And I said to Tuzelle, can you bring the card up with you? And she said, what? That big thing? And I said, yes, that big thing, but only bring it if you can bring it up in your luggage without it being damaged. And again, she has kindly complied. And I just wonder, I'd like to show it to the people here, Kathy, and I wonder, Kathy, if you could bring the card up and we could show the audience Captain Hufnagel's card. Maybe if you could come around and stand with me here, Kathy. Now this is a wonderfully, beautiful leather cover. It was given to Captain Hufnagel. Lovely embossed relief pattern around the edges. And on the inside, an illuminated inscription in German. and then on the other side, all of these beautifully preserved signatures, and starting off with German Governor Dr. Erich Scholz at the top. And look, there will be people here tonight whose grandfathers or great-grandfathers have got their signatures on this card. And if you're well behaved, Giselle might give you a look at this later on tonight. Do people want to know what the German inscription says in English? Is there anyone who wants to know that? Yes? Okay. Look, Kathy is a teacher of German in the secondary school system in Auckland, and she has kindly done a translation for it, which she is now going to read out. So if you could read that out, Kathy, that would be wonderful.
Right. To Captain Kurt Hufnagel, we, the undersigned settlers of the Protectorate of Samoa, take the opportunity of the occasion of your retiring from your official profession to give voice to the feeling of admiration and respect that you have earned throughout your life in our community. You have travelled on your path calmly and serenely, a great man constantly led by the thought of serving the human interests of the community. In the 35 years that you lived and worked in Samoa, the pressing duties called you to act as a true son of the German nation and as an active citizen of our colony. Your service to the fatherland is rewarded by the favour of the Kaiser, and the story of our island will be made known in the future. Your sense of public spirit has been revealed in the way you have sought and found many opportunities to help and promote the good of the individual and the community as a whole. This card we have signed is evidence of our gratitude, and we wish you a long life full of peace and joy.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Thanks so much, Kathy. Fourthly, the Speyman family. 4 members of the Speyman family flew up from Auckland for this book launch, but owing to circumstances, had to return to Auckland this morning. But I do want to acknowledge them here. A couple of years ago, I tracked down the patriarch of the Speyman family, Rudy Speyman, to a seaside village, an hour's drive from Auckland. See, there's no escape from me. And I met with him and his lovely wife, Moira. And Rudy gave approval for me to access the large family photo collection, which is kept in storage in a basement in West Auckland. It is exceptional, and again features photos dating back to the 1870s and 1880s from the first professional photographer in Samoa, John Davis. The Speyman collection gathers together a number of photos from other old German families in Samoa who are in the Speyman family tree, Axman, Geibauer, as well as Malietoa. The family appear to have most of the collection of the late Hugo Geibauer, who lived in Samoa for 50 years from 1884 to 1933, and who was one of the giants of the German community. Fifthly, it's time I acknowledged my dear wife, Fionai. Now look, she is a proud Falealili girl, and I have dedicated this book to her. Let me read out from the acknowledgement section of the book, where I thank her for her patience and support in the extended endeavour which this project became. It has taken up a few years of my spare time, several actually, and she has seen it through with a level of good cheer and tolerance that have created a congenial workspace and helped lessen the guilt, my guilt about the endless hours spent. I might add that we have a mutual convenience pact, because Fee is a preschool teacher. She has a tremendous out-of-office workload, writing reports, paperwork, doing preparation. So she sits on the other side of the dining table with her laptop and her pile of papers, and I sit on the other side of the table with my laptop and my papers, and we're together. I might not be there mentally, but I'm there physically. And you married people here tonight will know what I'm talking about. And I wonder if Fee and my 2 daughters, Louisa and Rowena, could stand up, please. Okay, we're coming down the home straight. There are some people here tonight from Samoa who I want to briefly acknowledge before I sit down. Joe Keil has moved heaven and earth to have this book published in hard copy. In marketing terms, Joe is what they call a product champion. He has really got behind this book, and I've been flattered by his commitment to it. Though this book is freely available on the internet as an ebook or a PDF and has been downloaded by about 9,000 people, Joe rightly believes, I think, that there is a strong demand for a book. People want to hold something in their hands and maybe have it as a bit of a family heirloom. So he and the Trust have pushed the boat out financially in order to achieve that objective. And what a magnificent job Joe and the Trust have done. The quality of this book, which was printed in America, is fantastic. Joe is tireless. He is enthusiastic, and he is also something else. I was talking to his wife Celine many months ago, and I expressed some doubt about maybe the project going to completion. And she said, Tony, you have to realise one thing. Joe is a very persistent man. So thank you, Joe, for your persistence, for your vision, for your generosity, and for your endless energy. Could you please stand up? I want to acknowledge Vailima Apia Samoa, Principal Officer at the Museum of Samoa until a few weeks ago, who was a wonderful source of moral support over the last 4 or 5 years, and who came up with the idea that we should put these photos in a special website. Vailima has recently moved on to take over the family business, the Taufua Beach Fales at Lalomanu. So our years of enjoyable collaboration have sadly come to an end. Is Vailima here tonight? No, she's not. There are people from 2 Samoa-based families here tonight who have donated photos, most of which will appear in Volume 2. Lester Dean. Lester is here with his wife Leela, his son Charles. I'm not sure if Tua is here. Now, Lester Dean sounds like an English name, doesn't it? But Lester's mother was a Permula. She was a daughter of the first German dairy farmer in Samoa, Barnum Permula, who had milking cows up at Ululoloa. I think Lester told me, I seem to recall Lester told me that when Mr. Permula was deported from Samoa in 1920, along with about 180 other Germans, he wanted to take Lester's mother back with him and her sisters, but they didn't want to go. So, if I get the story right, they hid in the forest for a couple of days until the ship had gone. Good move. Otherwise, Lester would not be here tonight. Lester has also not only shared a few photos from his collection, but he's also put me in touch with his relatives in Germany. The Permulas, the Traub family, and the Putfaken family, who were also in Samoa in the old days. And they have given me some marvellous photography for future volumes and to be deposited in the museum. In fact, one of Lester's relatives, Christel Voigt and Gerhard Voigt, and Christel is a granddaughter of the last German postmaster in Samoa. She and her husband have travelled over much of Germany on my behalf. I didn't request that they do it, but they've voluntarily done it, scanning albums from some families. So, you know, I have a lot to thank Lester for. Lester, could you please stand up? The final donors who are here tonight and who I want to acknowledge are the Von Reike family. As I recall, it was Reimer Von Reike who forwarded to me some wonderful photos of the German rubber plantation at Solaua, behind Saluafata, with which their German forebear, Fritz von Reike, was associated. I believe it was the largest rubber plantation in the Pacific, with about 1 million rubber trees planted up to 1914. The photos, which I hope to use in the next volume, I believe were retrieved from von Reicke relatives in Germany relatively recently. Now I know Raima, I think, was going overseas. Is Luana or Polawai here? If you could be acknowledged, please, and stand up if you can. That would be lovely. Thank you. Polawai. Thank you, Luana and Polawai. Thank you. Thank you, Polawai. I have 2 more brief acknowledgements of local people, and then I'll sit down. Firstly, Lealai Tangamoa Eric Matis, grandson of German settler Alfred Matis. Eric took me on a couple of really fun expeditions into the hills behind Muliwhenua and behind Maauga, where we were looking for remnants of a couple of old German plantation houses. And the big pineapple, the very big pineapple canning factory that the Germans built almost right under Mount Tofua. Almost no one ever got to see it because it was so far off the beaten track. But we managed to find some photos of it in a really obscure garage in Auckland. But anyway, Eric took me on these wonderful expeditions and with the help of local people and Eric's translation abilities, we found what we were looking for in the bush. It was very exciting for me. I can't guarantee it was very exciting for Eric, though. So, Eric, thank you very much for some very cool trips. Where are you? Could you stand up, please? Finally, I want to acknowledge my relatives from Alipata, Sale Imoa, and Apia, and Whionai's sisters from Whalealili and Vaiteli for their kind hospitality during my research trips to the islands. Well, that's it from me. Let me conclude by thanking the head of state, Male Masiofo, for being so kind as to honour us with their presence tonight. And thank you all for your kindness in attending as well. Whawhitai lava a whiwhio ma susu mai. Thank you.
And how fitting it is, I think, that you can share that story and take us on that journey here at the home of Tusitala, or the storyteller. So, if you could give one out of that. Our next, I believe there's a special presentation, and I'd like to invite the chairman, the board, Hans Joachim Keil, for that presentation.
This is the last part of our evening. Again, I'd like to thank the Robert Louis Stevenson Museum Trust for allowing us to have this hold this launch here this evening. We appreciate your generosity, and we'd also like to thank the Stunzner family for offering to supply us with light refreshments, as you can see in the program. We appreciate that very much. It's wonderful to have all of you here this evening, especially the ones who are visiting from overseas, to make this a very memorable evening. We have some special guests who'd like to honor. Now, the first one, he came 2 weeks ago and he left last week. He couldn't stay any longer, and that's Leopepe Frederick Frost. Leopepe Frederick Frost is featured in the book. As far as we can see, he's the only person still alive that's inside this book of Tony Brunt's, and he sends his love and apologies. He was here, but he had to go back and head back to the United States. If you had watched TV last night and the night before, he was on television. Giving his love and wishes for us for a successful evening. And that's Leopepe Frederick Frost, who is the son of Fatu, Leofo Fatu Frost. That's featured in the book. Our other presentation this evening would be to His Highness the Head of State and Masiofo. This is your book from Tony Brunt and from the Samoa Historical Trust. Thank you. Of course, the next book is to our Reverend for the evening, Reverend Maauga Motu. Reverend, ole matouele so teutusi, ale tusi. So, ole tusi leo tusi talwai ole whanau saina leo no mai I Samoa. I ole tusi leo whanau siamani leo no mai tufata simulau tuspa I ole whanau Israelu. Whaftai lava. Whaftai. As Tony mentioned, we're so privileged to have Tuzal Emmons here. I had the privilege of traveling to New Zealand about a year ago and met her, and they showed me that wonderful card that was presented to her grandfather, Captain Kurt Hufnagel, and you can see with the signatures in there that it had most of the planters and members of the German community, also some from the other countries that were represented here in Samoa, and looking through, I also recognized immediately the signature of my grandfather, Hans-Joachim Keil, who came from Germany and who I am proudly named after. Thank you. And this is for you from Tony and the Samoa Historical Trust. The next one would be to the Agnes Sasehini family, and we have with us this evening to represent her mother, Miss Anne Gordon, and also members of the family. So, Anne Gordon, can you please accept this on behalf of thank you, of Tony Brunt and the Trust. Now the other special guest who was supposed to be with us this evening, I don't see him, I hope he's here, was Klaus Stunzner. Klaus just turned 80 last month, and their family has contributed a lot to the making of this book and also for tonight's event. Elby, who traveled from New Zealand, is here to accept the book on behalf of the Stunzner family. Mole Elby. And the last one, well, not the last one, but on the list is a special friend of our Historical Trust. He was also a special friend of the old courthouse trust, the Apia Courthouse. This kind friend was so much assisted the Samoan. He loved the Samoan people. He came to Germany, he married a Samoan and fell in love with Samoa, and he never to return. And he was also a very good friend of the head of state and the Masiofo. And I'd like to ask Malu Arne Schreiber to come and accept the book on behalf of your husband, who passed away in December. And so, but he would have been here this evening. Malu, can you accept? And for those of you, Arne Schreiber was the honorary German consul for Samoa for the last 15 years. And I was proud to work with him on many occasions. And he loved Samoa, and today would have been Arne's 58th birthday. We miss having Arne here. And because you're all special guests, I'm sorry I can't give out any more books. It costs the trust a lot of money, which we owe the bank, and the sooner you buy all the books and pay it off, Tony will go into volume 2. But just out of the kindness of the hearts of our trust, this is for another special friend, and she was born in Samoa, moved to Germany, and came back to live the rest of her life in Samoa, and also wrote a book. This is for Langi Brown. Langi, this is a special gift to you. Thank you for coming this evening. Thank you so much. You know, a lot of us talk about the German times and how prosperous we were. And those of you who are in government can listen to this, because Tony Brunt gave you a very good history, and I'm amazed at the wealth of information that he has. And we look forward to the next book. But he was right that Samoa had 5 major exports. We had the copra, the cocoa, the rubber, and the coffee, and the pineapple. Those were the only 5 exports that we have from Samoa during the German times. In 1914, we had the most exports that Samoa has ever had. Samoa has never reached the level of exports that we had in 1914. It just kept growing each year that we had in the German administration. And in every year, there was a surplus in the budget. They kept sending money to Germany, to Berlin. But nowadays, I won't say anything about the budget because I think we owe some money. So, Honourable Minister, I think that's a good lesson to learn. Maybe we should bring some more Germans into your administration. But Whaftai Te Lava for the opportunity. There are the refreshments on this side and the book selling on the other side. I think because if you open the dust cover, it's all in gold. It's a first-class book. The letters are written in gold, and they're worth about 1,000 tala, but we're giving it to you at the cheap price of 200 tala. So thank you very much, and I'd like to invite Reverend Motu to close this evening with a prayer. And again, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to have you here. Whaftai Te Lava. Thank you.
Ina o mai o mfa mo o ro fa na u ne fiafi foi pere vi inga ila o fio ta pero mato o finei il file mu a ngari lei fa tau nu ila to uma mai mato ina lo fam le ngari lei si ese o na o fio ilo sua foi su mato fai wina ni fa mo amen.